Now, to start us off, I'll talk about the requirements for master's student admission here in the US. Now, so if you're a student, if you're a prospective international student out there who want to come and study here in the US as a master's student, you need to have done your undergraduate, and so you need to have your undergraduate transcripts. Now, if you come from a country that doesn't use English as the mode of, teaching, you'll probably have to have your transcripts evaluated. There's some evaluation agencies out there. Most schools will give you the options that the ones that they normally like to use for evaluation. But one of them that you can actually use, it's called WES. So you can go to www.wes.org. So they do evaluation. That one, if you use that, pretty much I think all schools in the US will take your transcripts. Okay, so they do evaluation. It's of course it costs some money for you to be evaluated. So what they do is they reach out to your school. They confirm that you actually went to that school, and then of course they now they try to evaluate what you did for your undergraduate and try to put it into American GPA system. Okay. Now, so that's one of the things that are required. Now the other thing that probably will you'll have to do is entrance exams. Now, if you're coming for a master's program here in the US, most schools, if you're coming to a business related master's program, you'll be required to do an exam called GMAT. GMAT means a Graduate Management Admissions Test. Okay, so this test is for those who are coming to a business school. All right, now, for example, it's not necessarily for you to do a really business course, but because business schools also offer IT programs. For example, you can come and do, let's say, for example, Master of Science in Business Analytics. Most schools out there, they put business analytics programs under business schools. And for that, you'll have to do GMAT. All right. So if you are a prospective student, just check with the program that you want to study. The school will always list what they require there. Some of them will want GMAT, others will want GRE, and sometimes they may want a GRE, but if you have GMAT, they can always still accept you. Okay. So GRE stands for Graduate Records Examination. This exam is for those who want to come and study graduate studies here in the US for master's, of course, and PhD also, they require that. Even GMAT for PhD, they do require that. But for today, we are just talking about master's admission. So for GRE, it's for those who want to come and study programs that are not really related to business, but anything else, science, biology, biology, natural sciences and stuff like that, anything else that is not really business, mathematics, physics, all that, chemistry, all those things. So you'll have to do GRE. But again, you need to check with your school to see, for example, whatever program that you're interested in, just check that program, just check the requirements. And if it's a GRE, then go and do GRE. If it's GMAT, then go do GMAT, okay? Now, also, some other exam that you may be required to do is a TOEFL exam or IELTS or Duolingo. So those three, they basically test your understanding of English as a foreign language. Okay, so let's say, for example, you come from a country that English is not the main language of, of communication. Probably the school will require you to do TOEFL or IELTS or Duolingo. TOEFL, IELTS, I think they cost almost $200. I'm not very sure. I haven't checked yet because most of the students who come through our program, they don't really have to do that most of the time. Duolingo, I think it's one of the most affordable one. I think it might cost you maybe around $50. Schools are now taking Duolingo. Before, they never used to take it. So if you're looking for something that is more affordable, and as long as the school is asking for that, then you can go ahead and do Duolingo. Okay, but anyways, TOEFL, IELTS, Duolingo, those are just for English. English requirements, like they want to know whether you can speak and communicate in English. But most of the time, the other hand, if you're coming from master's program, they require you to do either GMAT or GRE, exam. All right. Now, Gmat and Gre, they test it's more of like your IQ levels. They are very tough exams. Okay, I also had to do it when I came here as an international student. Also, we do require those who are coming through our programs to take those exams also. One of the, even sometimes our schools, you might find there's some schools out there that may not require you to do Gmat or Gre exam, but also it's good for you to do those kind of exams because especially Gmat and Gre. Forget about TOEFL. If a school is not requiring TOEFL, then there's no point even of doing it. But Gmat or Gre, also if you're looking for funding, and we're going to talk about that. It's very, very important that you have a very good Gmat or Gre score, even if the school is not requiring. Okay, because I see a lot of prospective international students making this mistake. They don't want to do these exams because they take time. Okay, it might take you about, on average, about 3 to 4 months for you to self-study and do an exam like Gmat. So a lot of prospective international students don't want to do it. But it's not a good idea because you may need this score if you're actually looking for scholarships, if you're looking for funding, because the only way that, let's say, for example, a lender can be able to see that you're a good student is for them to look at your Gmat score and see how you scored. Because this is an exam that is done across the world. It's a standard exam, so they are able to know how they can be able to gauge how smart you are as a prospective international student. Okay, and we're going to talk more about that in terms of funding for your master's studies. Okay, now the other requirement for master's admission is SOPs, which stands for Statement of Purpose. So this is basically a requirement by schools for you to maybe write kind of like an essay indicating why you want to study at that school and why you want to study that program. Okay, and what's your future career goals, you know. So you have to have a very compelling statement of purpose for you to really get admission to a good, state university for your master's program. Okay. Now, other things that will be required for you when it comes to master's admission here in the US is for you to provide the school with recommendation letters. And when it comes to recommendation letters, we have 2 sets of recommendation letters. One is academic, and this is where you have to reach out to your school where you went for your undergraduate, maybe your professor, whoever used to teach you there, and reach out to them and tell them to recommend you for graduate studies here in the US. I always advise prospective international students to just have a generic recommendation letter. Let them not put the school that you are going to study. Let them not address specific school or specific program. You know, you can just tell them, recommend me for graduate studies in the US. So they don't have to list the schools, because also the reason is because when you are coming to study as a prospective international student, you'll probably won't be applying to just one school. It's not a good idea to just apply to one school. You know, you apply to multiple schools. On average, I usually advise our students to apply to maybe 3 schools and see which one will give you admission, because not all schools will accept you, even if you have the requisite requirements, because sometimes these schools, to get into these schools, it's very, very competitive. So you might even, let's say, for example, a school requires a Gmat score of 550. You might actually have a score of 550 and the school may not accept you because maybe, they don't have enough slots, maybe the class is for that students and they already have accepted maybe, let's say, for example, 40 students. So all those things can happen. So it's not advisable for you to just stick to one school, all right? So bearing that in mind, then you don't have to have recommendation letters that specifies to that specific school that you apply to, because now you'll be needed to again look for other recommendation letters, and that takes time. So, just have a generic recommendation letter from your previous school for your undergraduate studies. Also, another recommendation letter that you'll have to provide is a professional one. I get that, as an undergraduate student, maybe even if you haven't worked before, maybe you've done some internship somewhere. I think most schools for undergrad, you have to do some, they call them attachment or anything like that, or internships. So if you've done some internship somewhere, maybe you can reach out to them and they can recommend you. They can give a recommendation letter, which is a professional one. Also, if you don't have anything like that, you can reach out to someone who is a professional. Let's say, for example, you are friends with someone who is, let's say, for example, an IT consultant like me, right? You can reach out to them, and if they know you, of course, they can recommend you for graduate studies, okay? So on average, 2 recommendations. Maybe some schools, they'll ask for 3, but on average, 2. If they ask for 3, then of course, you have to provide an extra one, right? Now, another requirement for admission for a master's program here in the US is, of course, to submit the actual application. Most schools have, portals where you can submit your application online. Okay, so you just need to follow the instructions from the school's website and just put in the application. Also, some schools also, they accept, physical, applications where you mailed your application form. I wouldn't advise that. Okay, we are now in digital world, so just go on the website, go through the portal, just put in your application. It won't take you a long time, and the school will need that for them to make a decision in regards to your admission to the master's program. All right. Now, finally, you'll need financial supporting documents. These are needed at the end of the process, because for the school to issue you with an immigration document called I-20, which we're going to talk about later on in this session, you'll need to show that you can actually be able to show that, you need to show that you can be able to take care of your finances to study here in the US. Okay, here in the US, it's very costly to study here, but again, there's different options in terms of funding, and we're gonna talk about that. All right. You're watching Success with Bob Mwiti Show, presented to you by Appstech America. Appstech America is a consulting company that helps immigrants find amazing higher education and job opportunities in the tech industry in the United States. You can find our programs by going to www.appstechamerica.com. Appstech America, we wake you up to the unlimited potential within you. So what you're gonna do is I'm gonna open this session now for Q&A. Well, I'll try to read some of the questions here and see whether I can be able to answer all of them. Now, there's someone by the name Morris. He says that he's been in contact with Bob before. I did send my school credentials, which he approved, and gave a green light to apply to join Appstech. So yes, I'm qualified. I want to do a master's in data science. However, I need to know the loan repayment procedures. Well, now, I don't know. I don't want to dwell too much on our programs here, because that's really not what brought us here. But through the Kenya Airlift program, we have the handbook that specifically says the interest rate that is offered through the program, through our circle. You can check that out. I think it's 1% per month. And you repay once you graduate from school, and that loan is for relocation expenses. In terms of loans from the lenders, let's say, for example, if you take Prodigy loan, you can always go to Prodigy website and check their loan repayment interest rate. It's usually between around 9% and above. And same thing with Empower. Also, you can be able to know the interest rate for that. Now, repayment period, I think it's 10 years, I believe. I'm not very sure. I think 10 or 12. It all depends. Anyways, just go to the website again, Prodigy or Empower Financing, and you'll be able to see all that information. Securities, again, these loans, they are unsecured international student loans. So basically the security is you. You must be smart. That's why I said it's not just for anybody out there. You have to have a very good GMAT score or GRE score. You have to show you're a smart person. And if you're coming to do a very marketable program, let's say, for example, you're saying you're coming to do data science, that's the security for you. You're coming to a very good program. So they know that you have a very high chance of getting a job. Those are the kind of students that they want to lend to. They don't just lend to just anybody out there. So there's no other security that is needed. There's someone here who is anonymous, says that, could you talk a little bit about bachelor's, master's programs, for example, that in Colombia, where you can do an additional year taking a master's level and get a master's degree? Yes, I know there's those options where you have like dual programs. where you can do your bachelor's, and at the same time also you can start doing your master's studies. What you need to do is just get in touch with the universities that offer those programs that you're interested in, that are dual programs, and you should be able to get to know more about that information. Okay. All right, but yes, it's possible. Some schools, I don't think it's every school out there that offers those kind of options, but I know there's that where you can be able to do your bachelor's and at the same time also you undertake your master's. Okay, so those are the two questions that I can see. There's another one here from Ian. He says, for prospective STEM MBA students without previous STEM careers, is career change possible? Yes. Well, most MBAs out there, they are not really STEM, but there are some schools out there, they classify them as STEM. So you just need to ask whether your program is a STEM program. Also depends with which concentration you are taking, because MBA is very generic, right? So you can take an MBA, for example, in data analytics. If the school has classified that as a STEM program, then that's good for you, right? You can also take an MBA program in, let's say, for example, information technology as a concentration. That could be a STEM program, right? But generally, MBA, just a generic MBA, that won't be a STEM program. It will just be a regular master's program. And that will only get you just 1 year of post-graduation work authorization, OPT, that we talked about. Okay. Now, I believe the students want to know whether you can do a career change. Yes, like for example, you see, I always give my own example, right? I came to the US as a master's student, as an MBA student. Me, I didn't have any IT undergraduate. I didn't have any IT background. No. Okay. But what I did was, because I realized, remember I told you guys, I was finding it a little bit hard, not a little bit actually, very hard to get jobs. So I had to extend school by 1 semester. So what I did was I got trained in the IT, on IT job skills as an Oracle systems analyst. Okay. And that's how I was able to now to get a job, because I was trained on job skills. There's a lot of companies out there. We do such training programs. That's what Wilfred talked about. You know, we have training programs on robotics. For example, you can train as a robotics business analyst. You can train as a robotics developer. You can train as a data scientist on artificial intelligence and machine learning. You can also train as an Oracle systems analyst. These training programs, even though they are IT programs, even though the IT skills that you are being trained on, you can actually do them if you come from a background that is not necessarily IT. And that's really what I did. Right. Let's say, for example, if you come for an MBA, I did an MBA and I was able to train on IT job skills and I was able to get a job, because IT and business is quite related. You understand? And by the way, I see a lot of people out there getting scared of IT, thinking that, you know, if you don't have any IT background, then it's not easy for you to get to transition. No, because there's me when I used to work as an IT consultant, I never used to do any coding. I can't write even one single line of code. Okay, right? Because I used to implement from the front end. There's a lot of jobs out there. In fact, actually, so many of them where you work from the front end. Okay, so you don't need to have any tech background for you to get into the tech space. Okay, all right. So you just need to know exactly what you want to study, what you would also want to do as a career, what are the training programs out there for you that can enable you now, you know, get those skills that are needed in the job market. And we said we can talk about this in another session, because I think time is up for us. So let me take another question. In this era of working remotely, is it possible to find a company to sponsor me for H1B working remotely from Kenya? No, it's not possible. You have to be physically here. Let's say, for example, you get sponsorship to work on H1B visa through Upstack America. The government, the US government, requires us to bring you here in Tampa, not even anywhere in the US. You have to be physical. You can work remotely, but you have to be physically located in Tampa. You don't have to go to the office for Upstack, but you can be in your house, but in Tampa, because also they do checks. Okay, they do random checks sometimes to check whether, because some of these programs, for example, H1Bs, they can, they are very vulnerable to abuse, right? Companies can abuse them and file for people who are, non-existent, right? So they don't want to do that. So you have to be physically here, even though you're working remotely, even though you're not going physically to the office. So I've answered your question, hopefully. Does Abstract support admission support to universities, not your list, not on your list? Well, we normally work with the schools that are in our list. We keep on expanding the list. And the reason is because these are schools that we work with, some of the schools that we have official partnership with. We know that, for example, let's say where Wilfred is studying, we know that if you go there through our program, you have a very high chance of getting, graduate assistantship award because you're going to be considered because you come through our program. So that's how we work. But again, also the other thing, another factor that we have to consider is also the lenders, because part of what we do in our programs is that we hook you up with the lenders. Remember, I said we have, unsecured international student loans that we can offer you through our official lending partners. For example, Empower is our official lending partner. Prodigy is also our preferred partner, but they are not yet our official lending partner. So not every school is supported by these lenders. So, it has to be a school that is supported by them. So if it's a school that is supported by them and you need a loan, then at the end of the day, we can be able to help you out. Again, through our programs, we don't just take anybody just because you want to come to the US. We have to make sure that you have the funding, because we realize a lot of people out there, they go looking for bank statements from wherever they can get them, go to the embassy, present them, then come here and then struggle. We don't want that to happen. In case actually our program is not just a matter of you coming here and studying, also helping you get jobs once you graduate from school. That's why you have those training programs on the side. We support you once you graduate from school. We hook you up with employers who are looking for people with the skills that you have. All right. Someone here is asking, hi, hello, you said that working in corporate America requires unique and specific skills. Kind to share any? Well, I like talking about mostly IT because that's really what we focus on mostly. Okay, I might be biased into IT because also I don't want to talk about something that I'm not very sure of. Now, for example, in IT, there's a huge demand. Also, I know in healthcare, there's a huge demand of people who have those kind of skills. Mostly, like, for example, in the IT sector, if you're working in corporate America, most of the people that you'll find working there as consultants, mostly it's Asians, specifically Indians. Okay, and they are working there because most Americans don't have those kind of skills. Okay, IT consulting skills. We're not talking about, for example, a skill where maybe you have a computer broken and you're the one who's fixing a computer. No, that's a very basic skill. That one you probably won't have anybody to sponsor you. See, at the end of the day, when a company is sponsoring you, they need someone who can solve complex problems for companies. And that's even what the US government wants. They don't just want to dish out H1Bs and employment-based green cards to anybody out there just because you want them. No. You have to be able to be someone who can solve complex problems for companies. And most of these complex problems, they cannot be solved by Americans. Okay, not many Americans can solve them, right? So they need us. They need those brilliant minds from everywhere across the world to come and help them out, solve those problems. I say that, most of the innovations here, they are done by international students, by people who came as international students. Okay, if you can be able to show that, then you're going to be able to get sponsored and you're going to be able to live and work here long-term once you graduate from school. Okay. There's someone else here. What courses you think are relevant across time and what courses are more ephemeral? What 3 courses would you take if you had to start again now? And what 3 courses would you have avoided in retrospect? Now, honestly, first of all, to me, IT was never my cup of tea. Okay, I was more inclined into doing, being an accountant, and things like those. So, and I had no idea what IT was all about. I knew IT about computers and stuff like that, but I had no idea about consulting life. Okay, so if I was to start this all over again and I was to find myself in your situation where you want to come and study here in the US, and I had the kind of undergraduate I did, which was a Bachelor of Commerce in Accounting and Finance, I would take a Master of Science in Business Analytics. Because one, I really don't love coding. Okay, so Master of Science in Business Analytics, probably it's not very techy, coding heavy. I think the kind of coding language that you have to do is Python. I know Python, it's not very hard in terms of learning how to code. I think it's one of the easiest coding language. So I think I'll do business analytics master's program. And I would basically, in terms of 3 courses, probably maybe business analytics. Maybe I would take maybe something like, I still have to take a STEM program, no matter what. Maybe I would do like operations management, still also a STEM program. Maybe I do even project management. I'll still try to find something that doesn't involve any coding at all, because that's not my thing. Okay. So of course I would avoid very heavy coding stuff, like for example, computer science, software engineering, and all that, because I don't like that stuff. Okay, but that's not to mean that those are not good courses. Those are very marketable courses. It all depends also with your level, right? You know yourself, right? Do you like these things? Can you do them also, right? Because STEM is not for anybody out there, right? Right. So yeah, so that's what it is. And another question: for prospective students in non-profit sector in finance roles and not in IT, does Upstack America support the admission process? Well, as long as you come through as long as you're interested in studying anything related to business or IT, you can come to us and decide to do an MBA in finance, or do MSc in finance, or do Master of Accountancy. Yeah, so we support those programs. Remember, our programs, they are more tailored towards helping you get a footing in the corporate world here in the US. Not just come to school. Okay, come to school, finish your master's, get done with that, then get the skills that are needed in the job market, then get into the corporate America. So we can only do that if we bring students who are in the same line as what we do as a company here in the US, which is basically IT consulting. And for you to do IT consulting, you can do IT consulting even without finance, accounting background, just general business background, mathematics, all those, anything related to that, you can always do IT programs, right? Because remember also I said, you can be in the IT industry working as a consultant. You don't have to code anything. You can work there as a business analyst. You can work there as a systems analyst. You can work in fintech, all that. All right. So it's possible to get into IT without necessarily being a programmer. Because when you talk about IT, most people think IT, it's all that about programming and all. I think the last question here is, I think the last question here that I got is, do you help students apply to Colombia? Well, currently we are not working with Colombia as our official partners, but who knows, maybe very soon. But if you come through our programs, and let's say, for example, we realize that Colombia, they maybe work with some of the lenders that you work with, yeah, we can help you get into Colombia. Okay. You've been watching Success with Bob Mwiti Show, brought to you by Upstack America. Come back next time to hear more steps and missteps that I took on the path to becoming a successful immigrant in USA. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn.